What is Lectio Divina? Let's talk about it. Hey everybody, this is Cody. Welcome to another Monday morning moment as we continue our series within a series on spiritual disciplines. And today we're going to talk about Lectio Divina. You might be asking the question, what in the world is Lectio Divina? Lectio Divina simply means divine reading. It's a practice that has been implemented for hundreds of years, and it's actually a great way to read and pray through the scriptures. And so you're going to get a very practical spiritual discipline today as we walk through this practice. And so Lectio Divina starts off, and it's 4 steps. The first step is reading. You're going to pick a passage. I often say start with a passage from the Gospels. You can do it throughout the scripture, though, but you'll pick a passage and you're going to read through it. And the idea is that you begin to read, and then you'll go on to step 2, which is meditation. And so after you've read through it one time, you're going to read through it once more. And so you're going to read through it slowly, read it aloud, and what you do is you ask which phrases, which verse, maybe even which words stick out to you, and you're going to meditate over those. And so I often say highlight, underline, circle, different things that really stick out to you. And it's a great way to meditate or to think deeply, think more on the piece of scripture in front of you, which leads you to your third step, which is to pray. So you may read through it a third time, and as you're reading through it, you really dig deeper. You pick a word that sticks out to you, and you pray and you ask God, would you help me to implement this in my life? God, would you forgive me for not doing X, Y, or Z that I've seen in this scripture? And then finally, the fourth thing is to ask God to give you an applicable action, an action step to move forward as you have read your piece of scripture. And so what I'd like to do is that I'd like to actually walk you through an example of this. And so what I'd like to do is turn to Luke 10, and we're going to read verses 38 through 42. This is the passage where Mary and Martha are there with Jesus. Martha's a little busy, and Mary seems to be very present. And so it reads like this. It says, "Now as they went on their way, Jesus entered a village, and a woman named Martha welcomed him into her house. And she had a sister called Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet and listened to his teaching. But Martha was distracted with much serving. And she went up to him and said, 'Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Tell her to help me.' But the Lord answered her, 'Martha, Martha, you are anxious and troubled about many things, but one thing is necessary. Mary has chosen the good portion, which will not be taken away from her.'" So you've read through the passage. Maybe you read through it one more time and you begin to meditate on it, and you really fixate on verse 40. It seems that Martha's very distracted, is the word used there. She's distracted by serving. It seems that she went straight to service rather than being with Jesus. There was this distraction there. Maybe that resonates with you. And so you begin to pray over that. God, would you help me to be present? God, would you forgive me for moments where I've spent less time with you, but decided I'd just go forward and start serving without ever, coming to you first. Maybe you look and you really, sit in that passage and you think, what did Mary look like? What was she invested in? What were the conversations they were having? Maybe you see Martha running around. Maybe you resonate with her. And maybe there's the words there in verse 41 that you are anxious and troubled about many things. Maybe you fixate on those words. You might be anxious today. God, would you help me with my anxiety? God, would you give me a tranquil heart? You begin to pray those things. And maybe your action steps are things that God gives you as you read this. Maybe it's, I'm not going to be as anxious today, but I'm actually going to spend time with God rather than be so busy. I'm going to take time for him. Maybe that's your action step. And so there's a practical way of how you can do Lectio Divina, put into practice this spiritual discipline. And I pray that it's beneficial for you. Maybe you are wanting a more handheld version. You can come into our reflection room. There's these wellness cards. It has Lectio Divina, and it actually gives you the 4 steps how to walk through this spiritual discipline. And there's also tons of different scripture that you can do this through. And so I really suggest stopping by our reflection room, grab one of these, and put into practice this spiritual discipline this week. I'm so grateful that y'all tuned in. I hope that this is very practical and helpful for you in your devotion and in your growth and walk with the Lord. I love you guys. Your lives matter. Know that I'm proud of you. Know that I'm praying for you. And tune in next week as we continue with our Monday morning moments. See ya.